Well, welcome back in, everybody, to another edition of Get to Know the Royals, and I'm joined today by head women's lacrosse coach Clare Short. And Coach Short, thanks so much, I should say, for carving some time out for us to talk to us here this morning.
Yeah, of course. We don't have a midweek game, so it's a little bit easier to fill it in.
I was just about to say a little bit of a reprieve for you guys here this week. No midweek game, and of course, maybe a little bit good because it's a little dreary outside. I know I'm from the Northeast, so I know that's decent lacrosse weather, but at the same time, you never know. Coach, let's start by kind of getting to know you a little bit. You've been here for the last 5 years, and you've had so much success with this program. But can you talk a little bit about how you got started in the game of lacrosse and what really led you to Queens?
Yeah, sure. So I am originally from Maryland, which is one of the hotbeds of lacrosse.
Sure.
My dad played in college, so I'm one of 6 children, and it turns out that I was the only one that was interested in the game. So I was very excited for that to happen. Went to play up in Pennsylvania at Lock Haven University, another Division II school. I studied in sport administration, so I knew I wanted to become a coach. And then I ended up getting an assistant job at some point down here at Queens. So I was an assistant at some point, and then continued my career and eventually came back to Queens.
Well, it's funny. I've talked to several coaches and really administration, stuff like that. And that's a big theme, is turning in terms of coming back to Queens, because it's a beautiful place. But, what drew you back to Queens besides obviously the head coaching job?
Yeah, I mean, it was the community, to be honest. I loved everything about what Queens had to offer, not only just within their campus, but in the community of Charlotte as well. Charlotte is an up-and-coming city, and it's thriving, and it's booming, really. So I thought that was exciting, and Queens is really instilling themselves in the Charlotte community. So just the facilities that we have, the resources that we can provide to our student athletes was something that I was looking for in my career. To be honest, as soon as I graduated college, I knew I wanted a head coaching job at a Division II level and in North Carolina. So got it.
I say you hit the trifecta on that one. Well
Yes.
done. And you mentioned your dad playing lacrosse, and of course you being his golden child now is the one who went that way. But it's funny because I'm from the Northeast and, of course, very familiar with Lock Haven. I went to Lemoyne College myself. What is it about the Division II level that really stands out to you? Because, that's one thing that's always stood out to me is I just love the competition at the Division II level. But what made you come back and really want to be a head coach at this level?
Yeah, so my experience at Lock Haven was phenomenal. And I say this to my recruits all the time, it's the perfect combination. It really is, between the divisions of 3 and 1. You've got that competitive side, both or all 3 regions really, or divisions. But then you've also got the balance of your academic success and even your social life. So I liked that as a student athlete, so I could relate to it when I'm recruiting. And again, we were very competitive at Lock Haven. So, having the resources that I do at Queens, it allows me to be a competitive Division II program. And again, I kind of get those girls that might be thinking of the Division I level, but just need a little bit, more time for their academics or social life or family.
Well, and you mentioned, obviously, the city of Charlotte is a huge draw to folks because it's not very often you find such a competitive, good division school across the board athletically and academically that's nestled at the heart of such a big city. And this kind of does have the best of all worlds. Now, I'll give it to the administration. They sold it to me that way. But, it's funny because I went to the Division II level myself, and I know that kind of balance between athleticism and academics. And that's obviously a huge draw at Queens as well. What do you do as a coach in terms of making sure that these girls are still with their head in the classroom, although you need them to have their head on the field when the time comes?
Yeah. I mean, I'll just kind of touch base back of, how or why it's a little bit easier for me to recruit here. To be honest, Lock Haven is in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. So when I took my first tour here at Queens, that same day I called my mom and I was like, why didn't we look here? This is amazing. And she was like, well, at the time they didn't, have,
Sure.
a standing, program, back then. So when I am recruiting, it really is the best of both worlds. My girls are dedicated in the classroom. So they kind of know, I'm here for my 4 years of lacrosse, but there's not much, after college in the lacrosse world, rather than if you're going to become a coach. They come here for their academics, and we recruit girls that are willing and wanting to get that 4.0 in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So, we look for that first. And then that just trickles onto the field. If they've got that dedication in the class, then they're, most likely going to have that on the field. And that's kind of how we've balanced both worlds.
Sure.
And our girls work very, very hard, in all aspects, not even just in those two categories, but they're very involved on campus or even in the community of Charlotte.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, community service is another big aspect of this school and of every program at this school. So it's nice to hear that, it's always nice to hear the coaching staff being so involved with that stuff as well. Let's take a look back at 2019. What a year you guys had. Of course, last year, all the excitement building up to it, and then unfortunately gets cut short. You're not the only program to deal with that, but how did you guys deal with that coming off such a high that was 2019? We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. But how did you guys deal with all of that stuff last year when they finally did call it quits?
Yeah, I mean, it was heartbreaking. We were kind of coming on the cusp of that, high level Division II. I think that we've been a little underestimated the last few years. So finally getting into the Final Four in 2019 is, a great way for us to kind of stay in the top 10.
Sure.
So we were there in 2020. We went 5-0 for our only 5 games that we had. But, when we found out the news, it was truly heartbreaking because we had a great senior class in our leadership, awesome captains. We had brand new freshmen, 9 of them who were, going to make an impact to our program. So it truly was going to be probably our best year yet. So, our girls wanted that and they had been, buying into that. So it was really tough for us. But, we came out of that season ranked as number 1 in the nation. So that's not a terrible way to end, a good year. But we wanted, to finish that out strong and see how far we could have gone.
Well, you talked about the Final Four back in 2019, of course, such an historic year for the program and really just such a big year for the platform of women's lacrosse at Queen's University to really, like you said, kind of put you guys on the map and stayed on the map in 2019. Can you talk a little bit about the makeup of that team? And I know this year you still have young ladies that were on that team, which is always beneficial. Of course, Allie Blood, Rachel Parrott getting the benefit of being able to come back for another year. And of course, making an impact, Allie being player of the week this past week. And then, you have youngsters like a Maddie Bednarik who maybe saw you guys in 2019 and was like, wow, that's a program I want to be a part of. And now she gets the goalkeeper of the week, defensive player of the week. So can you talk a little bit about how, with 2019, despite 2020, how you were able to push that into 2021?
Yeah. So, and I think, again, like I was saying, we were kind of on the ups. And my girls are completely bought into this. We want to make it back to the Final Four every single year. I'm not just, here to get there possibly, every few years. I'm trying to build a dynasty here and a legacy. And I want that to be a traditional thing. That will obviously help, not only build the program, but it'll, like recruits like Maddie, who saw us while she was still in high school, that allows her to really buy into it as well. So I think that's kind of the trend of where we're trying to go. And it does have to deal with, retention, even as a coach, this is my 5th year now. So I think that's, going to allow us to build that trend up. It's been great to have the girls back, like Rachel Parrott and Allie Blood. They know the success that we've had, and they are instilling it into their younger girls. It's just an incredible experience to have a 5th-year senior who has been an All-American, 3 times, to kind of now start to train these freshmen. It makes my job a lot easier.
I was saying, it's in essence, you get an assistant coach without having to pay her. So there you
go.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's been really great to kind of just see, and those girls, Rachel and Allie, and even our seniors have seen ups and downs. So it's great to kind of have that experience from them.
Well, and this is a question I always had, and just to kind of take a turn here, this is a question I always have for coaches in terms of balancing, family life and head coaching. I can't even imagine the kind of stresses it takes to be a head coach, especially at the collegiate level, and for a program that competes at such a high level. So how do you balance that family and work life going back and forth?
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but I just had a baby 8 weeks ago.
I was, and I was hoping you would mention that, because that's just, someone told me that and I was like, wow. And she's out here. Yeah. So that's impressive to say the least, but sorry, go ahead.
So it was funny. One of the men's lax coaches came and saw me the other day and he was like, "Are you supposed to be here?" Yeah, I am. This is my program.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's fun. I grew up in the sports world. I came from a family of 6, so there was chaos all over the world.
Sure.
And, my husband played soccer here at Queens, actually.
Oh, okay.
Assistant coach for a long time. I think it was about 9 years.
Wow.
And he just recently changed jobs. But I am so used to the sports work balance that it's no different from me. And to be honest, right now in the season, this is when it's the most fun for me. So it's fun to just kind of dedicate my time now. I'll take a little bit of a break in the summer and have some time with my new babies. So it's been awesome though. And to be honest, my team is my family at the end of the day. So it's not only just my family at home, but I've got a family, here at Queens as well.
I was saying you have a whole lot of daughters at Queens.
28 of them.
Yeah. Hey, that's a lot of responsibility. I don't care. But, just kind of looking at this season and, of course, even probably a month ago, or I should say month and a half, 2 months ago, still the uncertainty of whether or not you guys were going to have a season. And here you are, you had the loss to University of Indianapolis, but that seems to be kind of a flash in the pan, because you guys have really kind of turned that ship around and have really started to put it together, especially offensively over these last couple of weeks. What is it that you've seen offensively from your team this year? And then how have you translated that onto the defensive side as well?
Yeah. So again, with it being COVID year, and we don't know exactly, if we'll get to the end of our season, or at least that's kind of like the mindset that some of us have had. But we've kind of just approached it. We just got to take it one day at a time, one game at a time. We're just lucky to be out here at practices or at a game every single day. So our girls come out with a lot of heart and a lot of dedication, because they know that feeling from last year. Even our freshmen, they had their senior year taken away from them. So they know that no next day is given. So they're fighting hard for it every time they're out here. Our experience and our leadership on the attack has, again, allowed us just to kind of, not necessarily taken a step back because we didn't have a fall ball. We've got, tons of returners on the attacking end, which already know how the attack should be run. It did take us a little bit to get back in the swing of things. I mean, our girls played a collegiate game in almost a year.
Yeah.
So, after that UND game, I think we started really to get our balance and just, get our groove back on the attacking end. Defensively, we had some returners last year, but to be honest, they were a younger group last year, if you younger, because we had only played 5 games. But, we had lost our starting goalie in Chase Brokaw. He stepped up for us in the 2019 season.
I was gonna say, and that's a tough goalkeeper to lose too. So I get that. Yeah.
So I think, just kind of rebuilding that defense last year, ended up bringing it to the 2021 season. They are a little bit newer, inexperienced, but we've got, great leadership down there too. We've got 2 captains on the defensive end, and we have a new transfer who came from NYIT in Grace. So that's been very helpful too.
Well, and it's so crucial to have players with experience and stuff like that. And, just looking at the makeup of this team, you have a pretty a broad spectrum. Like you said, you have the girls that have been there, that have done this before, that understand it. And then you have the young ladies that are just now coming in. And you've got a lot of freshmen that have gotten playing times here this season. And I think what a lot of people don't understand in any sport this year is there was no off season. There was no, scrimmages, like you said, and fall ball and stuff like that. You basically had 2 weeks, and then you're like, well, let's see what we got, And so in terms of a head coaching aspect, how difficult was that, making that kind of turnaround, as opposed to, like you said, having that time to kind of plan ahead and say, okay, I think this is what our starting lineup's going to be. We'll tweak it a little bit along the way. But you guys basically just had to say, all right, trial by fire time.
Yeah. To be honest, the biggest thing, or the biggest difficulty that we've seen is our team chemistry. We build that a lot in the fall. So, not even on field, but just even off field that the girls haven't been able to do. They really build that team bond that makes them connect even stronger on the field. So yes, we can have the skill set all day long, but if we've only got 2 weeks together, you don't really build that trust and that respect for each other on field unless you have dedicated time to it. And it's been hard to do that over Zoom. So it's just been a difficulty that I'm sure every team is dealing with. That's just something that we've always kind of dedicated ourselves to. But yeah, that's the biggest one.
Well, so you guys have 2 back-to-back home games, and then you're on the road for back and forth really for the remaining. So you have 8 games left, 4 of them at home, 4 of them on the road. All of them SAC games. And we've talked about the success that you as a head coach and being with this program have had in the South Atlantic Conference, but it's no slouch of a conference, to say the least. There's a lot of up-and-coming teams, especially this year, looking across the board. So how do you navigate the remainder of this season? Is it one game at a time, I imagine, or what are you telling these young ladies in terms of getting ready for the rest of the season? Because I know your ultimate goal, obviously, is to get back to another Final Four.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one game at a time. And to be honest, with, how COVID year has been panning out, we don't know exactly who's going to show up that day. If that makes sense. So we've been kind of focusing just more so on ourselves because our opponents are unknown. We didn't see them in fall. We didn't see them in a preseason scrimmage. Have new transfers in. They could have girls that have left. So it really is just focusing more on like our game plan and hoping that we come out for a full 60-minute game. Just one day at a time, one game at a time. So it's been kind of fun though to focus just more so on ourselves and not get so honed in on the opponent. Conference is getting so much stronger, and I'm so happy to see that. It being a newer conference a few years ago, it was just starting to get built up. But we've had great success in multiple of the schools that are in our conference. So it's awesome to see that. And I like kind of the change of what's been happening. I will say Limestone being in our conference is going to be a little bit tougher for us. Awesome competition, and it makes our region that much stronger.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, of course, Limestone perennially has always kind of been there. And then you look at the other teams in the South, and I know you guys are obviously now on that map, and that's so cool that even in a matter of a couple of years, you guys have put yourselves in that conversation. And, you alluded to it just a second ago, just kind of, looking at how this team has come together here this season. And you talked about being able to focus on each other a little bit more. And I feel like sometimes in the season, especially when the mayhem of an actual full season goes on with fall ball and everything, maybe sometimes that gets lost in translation a little bit. So can you talk about just a little bit about how this team has been able to kind of come together a little bit more because of the fact that, they've really just had to focus on themselves?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's been, and this is not only just for my team, but for, every student athlete here at Queens or, in the nation, there's just been a lot of anticipation and a lot of pressure because we've been waiting so long for this moment. So for us, we're really just trying to mentally take it, day by day, but also just what do you want out of this season? You have waited so long for this. So individually, they've got personal goals on what they want to accomplish. Like Rachel Parrott, she just got her 100th goal last week in one of our games, which was something that she probably would have wanted her senior year. She decided to come back, and it ended up, being her super senior year, which is awesome. So for those girls, individual goals, But even for our newcomers or even our sophomores who only saw 5 games, how successful we were in 2019. They saw a little bit of a cusp last year, but they're so hungry for it because they came here because of how successful we were. So they don't want to, just go through the motions, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
They're fighting every single day. I mean, like a Shannon Donovan who's coming out of nowhere and getting all these goals. She's fighting hard to not only be successful for herself, but to, grow this program into the legacy that we've been talking about.
It's funny you mentioned her, by the way, because she is such a joy to watch. And we were, and Jess Todd, my color commentator, and I were talking about on the last broadcast. I mean, she just creates, she's, it's funny. I said, she's a chip off the alley blood block. She just runs through people. Yeah. And just, it's one of those things that you're going to have to take this ball away from me because I'm going right at the net. So yeah, it's been fun to watch her. And like you said, these other young ladies, that have started to blossom here this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Shannon's great to watch. I mean, she can run for days too. We kept her for a whole 60-minute game against UND, and that is unheard of now that our game is so fast moving. So thankful to have her.
Well, and I do have to shout out Rachel Parrott's father, by the way, because he came up to me last game when she scored number 99 and gave me a piece of paper and said, hey, I don't know if you know this, but next one's 100. And I was like, listen, that is the greatest thing a broadcaster can ask is having, that kind of milestone, being able to talk about it. And of course, it was funny to see her when she scored that goal. You could see her just kind of shake her hands off and like, all right, weights off. Let's go have some fun.
Yeah. It was an exciting time for sure.
Well, just looking ahead of the rest of the season, you guys have Lenore-Ryan coming up on Saturday here at home. Of course, a program that you're familiar with. And can you talk a little bit about going between teams here in the South Atlantic Conference and kind of how that's come full circle? I know you said in terms of you started in Maryland, it came down here, obviously married a man that was part of the Queens family and such like that. So kind of just looking full circle wise, how have these last couple of years really panned out for you?
Yeah, I mean, so LR is kind of like a personal rival, I guess, for me, but I'm very familiar with that program. So coming down, to Charlotte, like I said, I was the assistant here for a year and a half before I moved to Lenore-Ryan to get that head coaching job. But to be honest, Queens just kind of had always a little special place in my heart. So as soon as this job opened back up, I knew I was going to apply for it. And I'm so grateful that I got this job. So, the last few years have been awesome. I knew that this program could get to the level where it did. And we're not done yet. I mean, we are super hungry. And I'm just so excited to kind of see, what these next few years can even do for us. Because again, we were happy with that Final Four appearance. But to be honest, that was just kind of the edge. And we get back there every year and we want to win a national championship. But that's what I kind of tell my recruits is I don't want to win just one national championship. I want to win multiple, and I want to win them year after year if we possibly can. So it's just been great to kind of get the dedication from the girls and truly get, the recruits that we want and that we need to build that legacy that we want to do.
Well, Coach, congratulations, obviously, on the success you've had thus far. And like you said, plenty more to come over these next few years. So go out there, enjoy the rest of your season. And I know it's one day at a time, but we're, of course, rooting for you one day at a time, one game at a time. We'll be there on Saturday for you and throughout the rest of the season. And hopefully, like I say, I'm planning on booking a trip to Salem, Virginia. That's all I'm saying. I'm ready to do a little bit of traveling throughout all this craziness. So,
and what's funny is that my dad, who played lacrosse, he went to Roanoke College.
Oh, all right.
It's right in that town. Yeah. So did 3 of my siblings, actually. So,
okay.
When we go, we're gonna have a big crowd for sure.
Hey, I was gonna say, even if it's all your family, Queens is going to have a huge crowd. That's for sure. Well, Coach, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to me here this morning. Best of luck for the rest of the season. And, of course, always go Royals.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
Thanks.